Ty Borden was gone for a long time. No one expected him to come back so suddenly. The quiet ranch felt different that day. The sun was low, and a soft wind blew through the trees. Then, the sound of a truck echoed down the dirt road. Everyone held their breath. Who was coming? When the truck stopped, a tall man stepped out. It was Ty. The same Ty they all knew, but changed by time and distance. His eyes looked tired, but there was hope there too. The moment was full of questions and emotions. What had brought him back? How would the family react? This was not just a return. It was the start of something new. Ty walked slowly toward the ranch house. The familiar wooden fence and green fields brought back memories. Each step was heavy with the past. His hands trembled slightly, but he kept moving forward. As he got closer, he saw Amy standing on the porch. Her face was calm, but her eyes were wide with surprise. The years apart melted away in an instant. Ty's heart pounded as he looked at her. He wanted to say so much, but kept silent for a moment. The ranch was quiet except for the wind and distant animal sounds. This was the place that held so many of his happiest and hardest times. Amy took a small step forward. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she watched him carefully. The sun hit her face and a tear escaped down her cheek. It was a mix of joy and pain. She remembered all the moments they had shared and the ones they had lost. Ty's lips moved, but no words came out at first. The air between them was thick with emotion. Then, finally, Ty said, "I'm home, Amy." His voice was soft but steady. Amy nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. She felt a flood of relief and fear at the same time. Could they really go back to how things were? Or was this just the beginning of a new story? Around the ranch, others started to notice. Lindy came out from the barn, wiping her hands on a cloth. Her eyes met Ty's with a mix of surprise and worry. Jack, sitting on the porch steps, stood up quietly. Everyone sensed that this was a turning point. The family that had held strong through so many storms was about to face one more. But this time it was different. Ty's return was not just about him, it was about all of them. The past, the pain, and the hope for healing were in the air, and no one knew what would come next. Ty took another step toward Amy, closing the distance between them. His hand reached out slowly, almost unsure. Amy met his gaze and then took his hand. The warmth of that small touch said more than words ever could. For a moment, the world outside the ranch disappeared. It was just the two of them, standing together after so long. This was more than a homecoming. It was a chance to rebuild what was broken. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows. The day was ending, but for Ty and his family, a new chapter was just beginning. The moment Ty's truck disappeared down the road, the stillness of the ranch broke. Amy stood frozen on the porch, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. She hadn't seen Ty in so long that part of her wondered if this was a dream or a test. She wiped a tear from her cheek, then turned toward the house, where the rest of the family was gathering quietly. Lindy was the first to speak, her voice low but steady. "I didn't think he'd come back," she said, eyes fixed on the horizon. Jack, leaning against the doorframe, gave a small nod, but his face showed the weight of years spent worrying about Ty's fate. Everyone felt the tension. Ty's return wasn't just a surprise. It was a shock that pulled up old wounds and unanswered questions. Inside the kitchen, Amy's mother, Lou, busied herself with tea, trying to hold the family together. But even she couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. "He's changed," Lou said softly, almost to herself. "Whatever brought him back, it's not the same Ty we knew." Amy listened, feeling a deep ache. She remembered the times when Ty was her strength, when he had been her safe place. Now the future felt uncertain. Would they be able to heal? Could they trust the man who had left? The silence in the room was heavy, filled with memories and fears. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, echoing the restless thoughts inside each heart. Lindy stepped forward, her voice firmer now. "We have to give him a chance," she said. "For Amy, for us all." Her words hung in the air like a promise and a challenge. Jack crossed the room to stand beside Amy, offering quiet support. "It won't be easy," he said, "but family means sticking together no matter what." Amy looked at them both, grateful but unsure. Her mind raced through the years, every smile, every fight, every moment they had shared. She knew that forgiveness was a long road, but maybe, just maybe, this was the first step. The family around her seemed to share that hope, even as the past whispered its doubts. Outside, Ty stood by the truck, watching the house. His face was unreadable, but his eyes told a different story, one of regret and longing. He wanted to explain, to say why he left and why he had come back now. But the words felt too heavy. Instead, he took a deep breath and walked slowly toward the porch again, ready to face the family he had left behind. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over Heartland Ranch. It was a small moment of peace in a day full of questions. But, for everyone there, it was also the start of a new beginning, one filled with hope, pain, and the possibility of healing together. Lindy's eyes searched Ty's face as he stepped closer to the house. She had always been the steady one, the protector of the family's peace, but now seeing him again stirred a storm inside her. Her voice was calm but carried a hint of steel when she finally spoke. "Ty, we didn't know if you were coming back. Some of us thought you never would." There was no anger, only raw honesty. Ty looked down for a moment, then met her gaze with quiet strength. "I'm here now," he said simply. Lindy's shoulders relaxed just a little, but the worry didn't leave her eyes. She wanted to believe in this new start, but the past shadows lingered too close. Jack, leaning against the porch railing, stepped forward next. His face held the kindness of a friend, but also the caution of someone who had been hurt before. "It's good to have you back, Ty," he said, voice low. "But you know it won't be easy for any of us." Ty nodded, understanding the weight of those words. Jack had been through a lot with the family, and his welcome was both an invitation and a warning. The rest of the family quietly gathered behind them, their eyes full of questions and silent hopes. They had all felt the gap Ty left, but now, that gap might start to close, slowly, carefully. As the evening grew darker, Amy stepped closer to the group, her heart heavy with emotion. She reached out, touching Ty's arm gently, grounding herself in the moment. "We have so much to talk about," she said softly. "Things that don't just disappear because you're here again." Ty's gaze held hers with a mix of regret and determination. "I know," he replied, "and I want to make things right." Around them, the ranch seemed to hold its breath, the animals quiet in the fading light. For this family, every word, every look was a step toward healing. The road ahead was uncertain, but in this moment they stood together, fragile but hopeful, ready to face whatever came next. The night settled over Heartland, but inside the farmhouse, the air was thick with unspoken feelings. Amy and Ty sat, across from each other at the kitchen table, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows that flickered like their emotions. Ty's voice was steady but heavy as he began. "I never wanted to leave like that. Things happened. Things I couldn't control." Amy listened quietly, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She felt the weight of his words, but also the distance that had grown between them. "We both changed, Ty. Time doesn't stop for anyone," she said softly, her eyes searching his. There was no blame, only the raw truth of two people trying to bridge a gap that had grown too wide. Ty took a deep breath, looking down for a moment before meeting her gaze again. "I've made mistakes, Amy. Big ones. But coming back, it's because I want to fix what I broke. Not just for me, but for you and for us." His words hung in the air, fragile but full of hope. Amy felt a flicker of the love they once shared, buried beneath the pain. "It won't be easy," she whispered. "There's a lot to forgive, and even more to understand. Ty nodded slowly. I'm ready to listen, to do whatever it takes, because without you, there's no home for me. The silence that followed was different now. Not empty, but filled with possibility. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows, carrying with it a promise of new beginnings. As they spoke late into the night, memories surfaced, both sweet and painful. They talked about the years apart, the loneliness, the fears, but they also shared small moments of hope, like the time Ty remembered the first horse they saved together, or the way Amy's smile always lit up the darkest days. Each story was a thread, slowly weaving them back together. By the time the first light of dawn touched the sky, Amy and Ty sat closer, the distance between them smaller. It was not a perfect fix, far from it, but it was a start. A heartfelt conversation that opened the door to healing, forgiveness, and the fragile hope of a second chance. The next morning dawned bright and clear over Heartland Ranch, but Ty's heart still carried the weight of yesterday's conversations. Determined to reconnect not just with Amy but with the life he had left behind, he stepped outside to the familiar sights and sounds of the ranch, the soft neighing of horses, the rustling of leaves and the smell of fresh earth greeted him like old friends. Ty approached the barn slowly, running his hand along the rough wooden beams, feeling the pulse of the place that had shaped so much of his life. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of himself he had lost. As he moved through the ranch, Ty found small moments of connection that began to heal the invisible cracks. He helped feed the horses, his hands steady despite the years away. A few of the animals recognized him, nudging closer, sensing the return of someone who cared deeply for them. Nearby, a group of neighbors and friends were working on the fence, and they paused to nod or offer quiet smiles. Their acceptance was cautious but real, a sign that the community had not forgotten him entirely. These simple acts, though small, planted seeds of belonging and trust. Later, Amy joined him outside, watching quietly as Ty adjusted to being home again. She saw the effort in his eyes, the determination to make things right, not just through words but through actions. For her, this was a crucial step. Words could heal wounds, but living through the change was where true forgiveness grew. As the sun climbed higher, the two of them stood side by side, facing the open fields. The ranch was more than just land and buildings, it was a symbol of their shared past and the life they hoped to rebuild. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the familiar, Ty felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this time, coming home meant something. More than just returning. It meant starting over with courage and love. As the days passed, the rhythm of Heartland Ranch began to pull Ty deeper into its fold. He found himself rising early with the sun, the cool morning air filled with the scent of hay and dew. Each task, mending fences, tending to the horses, helping with the crops, was a step toward reclaiming not just the ranch, but his place, within the family and community. Neighbors who once looked away now offered nods of recognition, and slowly, walls of silence started to crumble. Ty's quiet determination spoke louder than any words could. One afternoon, Amy watched from the porch as Ty worked beside Jack and Lindy, the easy way he moved among them, hinting at the bond that time had only strained, not broken. Their smiles were small but genuine, a silent agreement that healing was underway. The conversations became easier, the laughter more frequent. Even the children, who had only known stories of Ty, now saw him as a real part of their lives. For Amy, this was a fragile but precious victory, proof that love and family could survive absence and pain. That evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the fields, the family gathered outside. Ty stood among them, no longer the distant figure he had been, but one of them again. The ranch was alive with voices and movement, the kind of ordinary moments that built strong foundations. Ty's return had stirred old fears and doubts, but now it had brought something new. Hope. Hope that despite everything, the ties that bound them were unbreakable. And as the stars began to shine overhead, Ty knew this was only the beginning of their journey forward. together, as family. The night sky stretched wide over Heartland Ranch, a blanket of stars shining down on a family slowly finding its way back to each other. Ty stood by the porch watching the flickering lights inside the house where Amy and the others had gathered. The weight of the past still pressed on him, but tonight it felt lighter, like the first breath after a long silence. He knew the road ahead would be full of challenges, moments of doubt, and hard conversations yet to come. But standing there, surrounded by the land and people he loved, he also felt something stronger, a sense of belonging renewed. Amy stepped outside and joined him, her eyes reflecting the calm of the night. They didn't need many words. In that quiet moment, the distance between them had shrunk to nothing. "We're not perfect," she said softly, "but maybe that's what makes us real." Ty nodded, feeling the truth in her voice. The family had been tested by time and hardship, but their bond had not broken. It was raw, sometimes fragile, but it was theirs, and that was enough to begin again. As the wind whispered through the trees and the stars blinked overhead, Ty and Amy stood together, ready to face whatever the future held. Heartland wasn't just a place on a map, it was the heart of their lives where endings met beginnings. And in this new chapter, every step forward was a promise, to heal, to forgive, and to build a home filled with love. The past would always be a part of them, but it would no longer define them. Tonight, under the vast sky, they chose hope, family, and the courage to start again.